Two of the most critical energy infrastructure nodes on Earth were struck in a coordinated Iranian operation overnight. Saudi Aramco's Abqaiq oil processing facility, responsible for approximately 7% of the world's daily oil supply, sustained a direct hit. Simultaneously, Qatar's Ras Laffan LNG complex was struck again in what Iran's IRGC described as a second wave. Two targets, one night. Approximately 27% of global daily energy supply disrupted in a single operation, and then Donald Trump posted on Truth Social at 5:48 a.m. Eastern, threatening to, and I am quoting him directly, massively blow up the world's largest gas field if Iran does not immediately stand down. The President of the United States just threatened to destroy the North Field, the formation beneath Qatar that supplies LNG to Japan, South Korea, Germany, France, the United Kingdom, and Italy. Not Iran's gas field, the field that supplies American allies. That sentence is what the headline version of this story is not giving you space to process. Before we go deeper, hit the subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. What happened overnight represents the largest single-night disruption to global energy supply since the 1973 oil embargo. The implications for oil prices, for American alliances, for global recession risk, and for the next phase of this war are moving faster than any coverage can track. You need to be here for every development. Subscribe now. I will wait. Here is the fast version of what we know. Abqaiq was struck by a combination of ballistic missiles and cruise missiles in the pre-dawn hours. Saudi Aramco activated its emergency shutdown protocols. The Saudi government confirmed the attack and confirmed partial facility damage. Abqaiq processes crude oil from the Ghawar field, the largest conventional oil field on Earth, and feeds that processed crude directly into Saudi Arabia's export pipeline network. Any meaningful disruption to Abqaiq's processing capacity removes Saudi Arabia's ability to compensate for other supply disruptions elsewhere in the region. This is the facility that, when struck by a drone and missile attack in September 2019, caused the largest single-day oil price spike in history. That 2019 attack caused approximately 5% damage. The scale and method of last night's strike are still being assessed. Simultaneously, Ras Laffan sustained what Qatar's civil defense described as a second impact on the southern processing quadrant of the complex, which handles approximately 40% of the facility's daily LNG output. Two Aramco targets, one Ras Laffan target, all in the same 6-hour window. Now let me walk you through Trump's statement with the precision it requires. The full Truth Social post. Saudi Arabia and Qatar have been hit. This is Iran's fault and Iran will pay. If Iran does not immediately and unconditionally surrender, I will massively blow up the world's largest gas field. Nobody will have gas. Think about that. 4 sentences. The third makes the specific threat. The fourth is the sentence no analyst I have read this morning has adequately explained. Nobody will have gas is not a threat directed at Iran. Iran does not depend on North Field gas. Nobody will have gas is a threat directed at every LNG importing nation on Earth. At Japan, at South Korea, at Germany, at France, at the United Kingdom. Trump is threatening to destroy the energy supply of American allies as leverage against Iran. The strategic logic of that threat requires explanation the Post does not provide. Now, what nobody is covering with sufficient depth. Trump's threat to destroy the North Field would cause more damage to American alliances than any Iranian military action has caused in this entire war. Japan's economy depends on North Field LNG. South Korea's economy depends on it. Germany's post-Russia energy transition was built on Qatari LNG contracts. Destroying the North Field does not pressure Iran. It collapses the energy security of the nations America needs as allies in any long-term competition with China. Dr. Edward Chow, Senior Associate in the Energy Security and Climate Change Program at CSIS, described Trump's threat as the most counterproductive statement any American president has made regarding allied energy security in the modern era. The threat undermines three objectives simultaneously. It destroys the U.S.-Qatar relationship that sustains Al Udeid, signals to Asian allies that American security guarantees can become energy threats without warning, and gives China an immediate opening to position itself as the stable partner America is not. When an American threat against Iran does more damage to American allies than to Iran, that is not deterrence. That is a strategic own goal. Okay, I have to be fair. The other side has a point. Senator Tom Cotton appeared on Fox News within hours of the Truth Social post and offered an interpretation that deserves honest engagement. His argument is that Trump's threat, however extreme in its framing, is designed to communicate a level of escalatory willingness that changes Iran's cost-benefit calculation. If Iran believes Trump will do something catastrophically damaging to the global economy, including to American allies, the deterrence argument is that Iran's leadership will assess the credibility of American escalation differently than it would a more measured threat. The maximum pressure logic, applied to its absolute limit, is that unpredictability itself is a deterrent tool. Iran cannot plan around a threat it cannot predict. Second, the specific phrase about blowing up the gas field may be deliberately ambiguous about which gas field. South Pars, the Iranian side of the same geological formation, is also the world's largest gas field. A threat against South Pars would be directed at Iran rather than at Qatar and its LNG customers. The ambiguity may be intentional. Third, Qatar's government has not publicly condemned the Trump statement, which is notable. Qatar's immediate interest is in American military protection of its remaining energy infrastructure. A maximalist American deterrence posture, even a rhetorically extreme one, may serve Qatar's short-term security interest even as it threatens Qatar's economic interest. But here is where I have to be direct. Brent crude opened this morning at $162 per barrel. Before Operation Epic Fury began, it was $64. That is a 153% increase in less than 30 days. Goldman Sachs published an emergency analysis at 6 a.m. Eastern projecting that if Abqaiq's processing capacity is reduced by 50% or more for a sustained period, Brent crude reaches between $200 and $240 per barrel within 60 days. At $200 per barrel, American gasoline reaches between $12 and $14 per gallon. The Federal Reserve's emergency modeling, cited by Bloomberg this morning, projects that sustained oil at $200 triggers a recession in the United States within 90 days with 90% probability. That is not a geopolitical abstraction. That is the documented economic consequence of the decision sequence that produced last night's strikes and this morning's Truth Social post. Here is what you need to watch. Saudi Aramco's production status update is the most critical immediate data point on Earth right now. The company's engineering assessment of Abqaiq damage will be released in segments over the next 24 to 48 hours. Watch every word of it. Watch Qatar's formal diplomatic response to Trump's gas field threat. Qatar's foreign ministry has been silent for 4 hours since the post. That silence is itself a signal. When Qatar speaks, the specific language it uses about the American threat will define whether the U.S.-Qatar relationship that sustains Al Udeid has survived this morning. Watch China. Beijing has the largest strategic stake in North Field LNG of any single actor. If China issues a direct statement addressing Trump's threat to destroy the gas field that supplies a significant portion of Chinese LNG imports, that statement marks the moment China formally enters the diplomatic architecture of this conflict as a principal rather than an observer. And watch the Federal Reserve. If the Fed issues any emergency communication about monetary policy response to oil price levels, the economic crisis phase of this war has already begun. Subscribe now. Turn on notifications. When Aramco's damage assessment drops, I will break down every line. When Qatar speaks, I will cover it immediately. When the oil price crosses 200, I will analyze what the models say happens next. Abqaiq hit. Ras Laffan hit again. Trump threatened the world's gas supply. Oil at $162. Evidence first, analysis second. You decide what it means. This is today.